Jesus was walking with his disciples. It was the Sabbath, a day for rest and worship. As they walked, they saw a man who had been blind since birth. The disciples were curious. "Rabbi, why was this man born blind?" they asked Jesus. Was it because of his own sin or his parents' sin? Jesus' answer surprised them. It was not because of his sin or his parents' sin, Jesus said. This happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. Jesus then did something amazing. He spat on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," Jesus told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." Siloam means sent. The blind man went and washed his eyes. Can you imagine the surprise of the people who saw him? The man who had been blind all his life could see. His neighbors and those who had seen him begging were astonished. "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" they asked each other. Some recognized him while others weren't sure. "It's him," some said. "No, it's just someone who looks like him," said others. The man himself spoke up. "It is I," he said. Everyone wanted to know what had happened. "How did you receive your sight?" they asked him. The man told them about Jesus putting mud on his eyes and how he then went to the pool of Siloam and washed just as Jesus had told him. And then he could see. This miracle sparked a lot of debate and discussion. Some people were amazed, but others refused to believe it. The Pharisees, the religious leaders, were some of those who refused to believe. They were supposed to be experts in the law, but their hearts were hardened. They even questioned the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Are you saying he was born blind? How can he now see?" His parents were afraid of the Pharisees because they had already decided that anyone who acknowledged Jesus as the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That's why his parents answered, "We know he is our son, and we know he was born blind. But how he can see now or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He can speak for himself." The Pharisees called the man back in a second time. "Give glory to God," they said. "We know this man Jesus is a sinner." But the man was not afraid to speak the truth. "Whether he is a sinner, I do not know," he replied. "One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." The Pharisees continued to question him. "What did he do to you?" they asked. "How did he open your eyes?" "I already told you," the man said, "and you did not listen." "Why do you want to hear it again? You don't want to become his disciples too, do you?" Section 6. The Pharisees investigate. The Pharisees were indignant. "You were born entirely in sin," they retorted, "and you are trying to teach us?" And they threw him out. Jesus heard what had happened, and he went and found the man. "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" he asked him. "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." "Lord, I believe," the man said, and he worshipped him. This miracle, the healing of the blind man, wasn't just about physical sight, it was about spiritual sight. The Pharisees, though they could physically see, were spiritually blind. They refused to acknowledge Jesus as the Messiah even when presented with undeniable evidence. This story teaches us an important lesson. True sight, true understanding comes from knowing Jesus. When we open our hearts to him, he opens our eyes to the truth. The Pharisees, in their self-righteousness, missed the point entirely. They were so focused on rules and regulations that they failed to see the love and compassion of Jesus. This story is a reminder to all of us. We may not be physically blind, but we can easily become spiritually blind if we're not careful. We need to ask Jesus to open our eyes, to help us see the world and the people around us through his eyes. When we do, we'll discover a depth of love, grace, and forgiveness that we never knew existed. We'll see the world transformed, not by our own efforts, but by the power of the one who makes all things new.